This is a Friday, and this means that the two finest minds in the state, the suppressed state, will
Which
now be
state?
joined. How are you this morning, Pat? Are your wits about you? Are you
I
mentally
don't know.
sharp?
I'm never sure. You know what is it? You know, that thing about half-wits or whatever. So so I'll not say 50%.
What was the thing? If you always read the obituary column in the Irish News when you get up. If you're not in it, then you get out of
Yeah,
bed.
yeah.
Anyway,
True.
we're going to be talking about quite a few things here today. Well, actually, just only a few I can think of. One is Jim Allister and the DUP. Then we're going to talk about Girls, which was that a name of a song by the Beatles? Talking about girls.
No, it wasn't the Beatles, but know
Wasn't
the
it?
song.
Talking
Talking
about
about
boys.
girls
Maybe it was
who
talking about
fly.
boys. I'm not sure.
No, it was an American group, I think of.
Okay. And then we're going to be talking a bit about this theory that Newton Emerson has, that the North and South are kind of a balancing act, that the Mary Lou's going very middle of the road. Okay, let's start with Jim Allister. You're the one that dug this one up, so tell us a bit about what you think, what miscalculation you think Jim Allister made.
It was hilarious in a strange sort of way. Jim Allister, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, was listening to talk back, and I was as usual, I'm in and out and so on.
Yeah.
But he was clearly bumming big time about the fact that the TUV was no longer a parochial party. They had now had access to the movers and shakers, the big thinkers that, reform was up there now with the Tory party and so on. Richard Tice was the leader, and they had signed some sort of a memorandum of understanding and all this sort of crap and so on. And he regarded this a big stroke. We are now overtaking the DUP because we've got real influence and all the rest of it. And that was strike one. And it was all, this is great for us. And now we've got like-minded people on the mainland. All right. Anyway, I was in the gym in Templemore on Monday, I think it was. And I was listening to the BBC program starts at 4:00 on the radio, and the next thing it says, and shock news, a news flash just coming in that Nigel Farage, the new leader of Reform, is stating, well, he referred to it as, in regard to that Northern Ireland thing, I am backing Ian Paisley and Sammy Wilson, not the TUV. Now, here's the thing: Ian Paisley, Jude, is running directly against Jim Allister, or I should say maybe the other way around, saying that Ian Paisley is the sitting MP. Jim Allister is running against Ian Paisley. So here's this much boasted and bombast about having a disagreement with the between the TUV and Reform, and the leader of Reform saying, no, I'm not backing the TUV, I'm backing the DUP. Now, go on, tell me, how big a mess can you make? How much bigger than that? So in other words, there was no agreement at all.
Well, I think it's very typical. I assume that this is our friend, the new master of Reform, Nigel Farage. His decision. You see, the other was Robert Tice, or whatever his name was.
Richard
the guy
Tice,
who said that he was going to be best mates with Jim Allister.
Yeah.
Enter Nigel Farage, and he's changed a few things, and that's one of them, obviously. But the question is, will it do them any good? It might, because
Jude, and the whole thing. I think it's just if anybody was thinking about voting for the TUV, I'd say they're going, look how incompetent that they couldn't even nail down an agreement with with Reform. Now, Jude, it goes to prove another thing as well. When it comes to Northern Ireland, unionists should really get the message. They'll be thrown under the bus by any Tory, Labour, whatever, if it suits a cause, and Northern Ireland is not a vote getter on the mainland, and so on. And it's quite obvious that Reform and Nigel Farage don't give a monkeys about Northern Ireland, don't give a monkeys about the TUV. So, Jude, well, put it like this, it's a massive slap in the face for them, if nothing else.
Well, it is a slap in the face, but, this place has a tradition of doffing the cap. We quite like to look across to bigger beasts than we are ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm thinking particularly of unionism. And I think it comes from the early days of the Orange Order. where,
Yeah.
in fact, the premiership of Northern Ireland was invariably some guy from a big house like Captain Terence O'Neale or whatever.
James Chichester Clark. Yeah.
Yes, and they tended to look up to these people and say, "Oh, we've got some very smart, very rich people."
Yeah, we speak with the right accent. Yes, yes.
So I think there might be a little shade of that too. The Nigel Farage, Robert Tice, or whatever his name is, that they're saying, "Oh, we've got friends at court, so to speak."
Yeah.
Here's a question, though, Pat. Do you, now that Nigel Farage has come out and said that he's supporting the DUP in Og and so on, do you think it'll do them any good?
Well, I think it probably will, Jude. I really do, because it's really this whole thing. The TUV were going to, they were sort of the purist. They were the party that were going to supplement or supplant the DUP. They were the ones that were on the course. Now it shows they're as incompetent as the DUP. If the DUP oversold the protocol agreement, they oversold an agreement that their influence in London. So I think if I was a unionist, I'd be going, look, I may as well stick with the DUP. So much for the TV. If they're that incompetent, they cannot even nail down an agreement. And in fact, if they're of so little account that one day they have an agreement with a party and the next day they don't, Jude, it doesn't say a lot about their sticking power or their relationships with the, like if Reform can throw them overboard so quickly, Jude, they're nowhere.
Well, they're not so much throwing them overboard as saying we're not going to be concerned with you. We're concerned with the DUP. I'm not sure.
What would you call that?
Well, it's not throwing them overboard. It's saying we're not going to endorse you. I mean, how much attention did most people pay? I've said, there is a unionist tendency to doff the cap to the squire or whatever, and the squire in this case would be the Reform. But, I'm not sure that it would have counted for all that much. What I'm wondering now is the facts of the matter is they have Nigel Farage. The DUP now has Nigel Farage on their side. So I'm wondering, will it do them much good?
I'm saying, by the way, here, just to fill you in, this morning there was a poll published, and I heard it on RT. Reform for the first time ever has surpassed the Tories.
Yes.
The Reform has got 19% in the poll. The Tories are down to 18%. Now that gives the DUP a certain gravitas that we're in with the party that's even going to be bigger than the Tories. I know, Jude, it's a loser thing, but hey, Jude, it's the whole, what would you say, image or perception or something. And the perception now, and I am, like if I was a unionist, I would have very little time for the TUV in the sense, and I wouldn't have a lot of time for the DUP either, but at one stage, the TUV, if they had that clear run with the support of Reform, it was a good platform.
All right, well, the TUV have been around long enough, and we know they're not going to grow. They're not going to grow dramatically at all. Question is, what effect will Nigel Farage's buddying up with Ian Og have on them? And I like you, I watched Nigel Farage. It was actually one of the guests on Question Time last night at 8 o'clock. And he was the one that announced, well, I've just heard before I come in that Reform is now the second most popular party. And that means, he said, that means if you vote for Conservatives, you're helping Labour.
Yeah. Hey, you know what it is? There's no doubt about it. If people now vote for Reform, that's even, it really is without question. Reform aren't going to get elected because of the way I've never understood this, but the Tory party is so embedded that even a substantial switch doesn't mean a lot. They still retain their seats. Now, if that isn't gerrymandering, I don't know what is. But the bottom line is that Reform aren't going to win too many seats. But what they could do is split the right-wing vote, and that lets Labour in. So that's it's a 1-1 for Labour.
It is. It is. What do you think of Nigel Farage as a TV operator when he appears in a program?
He's very, very good. He's someone. I don't mean this. I regard him as a political con man. I don't know what he believes in. If Brexit is his big contribution to British society, I'm just going keep going because look how Britain is now a second rated nation. That's a fact, Jude. It's and let me repeat it one more time, Jude. Just go to the continent, and I've been to Spain quite a lot this last couple of years. I have yet to meet a single, and I'm on the record of saying this, a single English person who thinks Brexit has been a good idea. And when you land at the airport, which I did there a couple of weeks ago, have you got an Irish passport or EU passport? Yeah, go that way. You UK, go that way. We went through the checkpoint in about 2 minutes. There was a massive big queue at the UK Brexit checkpoint. There's a simple thing. And by the way, a lot of the Brits are moving out of Spain because the 90-day rules kicking in. There's all sorts of problems about officialdom. They have to join the Spanish tax system. And the Belgians are moving in. At the minute they move out, the Belgians are moving in. And Spain is not missing the UK one iota, tourist-wise.
Well, there was also, Pat, I'm still interested in, I'm not talking about the actual political effects. I'm talking about how attractive, how good, how smooth a performer is Nigel Farage.
Very good. Very good.
I'd agree with you that he is very good. In fact, he reminds me of, you're too young to know, but there was comics in the 50s, maybe in the 60s too. The Beano and the Dandy. Little characters. I always think that Nigel Farage looks like an escapee from the pages of the inside pages of the Beano. He looks like a sort of a juggy person you might meet at Blackpool or something.
But it's good. He's good for a laugh. He's presenting himself as this everyman. He's privately educated. Apparently, he's got a chauffeur. He has an account at Coutts, Coutts Bank, which is the bank for. He's personally very, very wealthy, and yet he's trying to let on and so on. And he's all this sort of let's take back control and all the rest of it. He spends a lot of time on the continent. His wife, I think, is German or something like that. So, Jude, I don't know what the hell background this guy is saying. And he's trying to sort of say, we can go back to the 1930s when we were a world power. No, you can't.
For sure. Listen, do you think we talked about this last week, that Brexit is becoming more sort of headline-y? People are mentioning Brexit and rolling their eyes. People are actually coming out and saying, I don't think we should have done Brexit. People who have voted for Brexit are saying, I'm sorry I did it. There was a debate last night as well. I think it was 7, I don't know if you caught it, it was 7 candidates. They had the guy who's the leader in the Commons, I think, of the SNP, and they had the Green Party co-leader. They had Nigel Farage. They had that Angela Rayner and a few others. So the presenter asked each one, will your party ever bring back Brexit? And the Tories said no. Labour said no. Of course, Farage said no. But Greens and the Social Democrats both said not now, but there will be a time when someone definitely think about it. So I think that's good news. It's good that the whole question has to be asked in the first place. And it's good news that some people are saying, well, we will consider it. Even they are small little parties. It's good to have the thing out there, for God's sake. It's like pretending there isn't a body lying in the middle of the library. You're passing it and reading a book and forgetting all about them. Anyway, that's Nigel Farage. I don't think. How do you see the DUP doing, Pat? Do you think it'll be lose seats?
Jude, if you could read what's happening in unionism right now, you'd be a bit of a genius. I think the Gavin Robinson admitted they oversold the protocol. Remember, Sir Geoffrey went out and so this is we have succeeded here and we've succeeded there. Now it's admitted that there's a whole lot. So they didn't get half of what they said they want. Remember the 7 testers? They got
yeah.
Right, but the other side, as you said earlier on, the TUV is a one-man band. Jim Allister, and Jim seems to want to live not in 2024 but about 1824, and I think a lot of young, more liberal unionists are sort of saying we can't go back to that. And Jude, every which way you look at unionism is getting it in the eye. So I don't know what's happening with unionism right now. The way I think, I think unionism is not going to do great in this election. That's all. That would be the overall.
I would tend to agree. I tend to agree. I like you. I don't know the individual constituencies. Although I did hear somebody saying today on the radio that Pat Cullen's campaign down in Fermanagh, South Tyrone, was a very quiet affair. That there wasn't nearly as much noise as you would expect. So I kind of worry a little bit about that. I think they.
But Jude, by the way, just to cut across you, Sinn Féin's, we mentioned it on Monday, Sinn Féin's election down here in the south was a very quiet affair here as well. I remember at one stage when Sinn Féin had an election, by God, whether you agreed with them, disagreed with them, or whatever, you knew they were about. That tapers the last time, and maybe we'll come on to the elections down south. But anyway, whatever. It wasn't a normal razzmatazz Sinn Féin, but anyway.
Okay, well, we'll come back. We'll come back to that in a minute. So meanwhile, we'll draw a veil over Allister and his good friend Nigel Farage. I predict if ever the DUP is going to lose seats, it has to be this time. It has to be. They're in the worst possible shape. I'd agree with that. And it's unfair, but that's the way it is. Their leader.
Just one question: do unionists see the TUV as a real alternative? That's what I think the problem is. If they were a normal party, yes, but the big question is: will enough people go to TUV?
Yeah, their central core message is right. But I think most people feel it's not going to work, They're saying that this is economic unity preceding political unity. I think I think they're right, but that's not the way they'll get any traction. The only way that they'll again, we're back to what Joe Brolly said years ago. The only way that unionism can kind of resurrect itself is by becoming family-friendly unionism or nationalist family-friendly. And they say, that Gavin Robinson is seen as that. He's the softer side, and he was a big mate of Jeffrey Donaldson. I don't see him as being my mate. I could conceivably see Jeffrey, but Gavin's so big. He's a big stumbling guy.
He used to be little and large. Jeez, every time he stood behind Jeffrey, it was like a Hulk.
He just looks a bit lugubrious, and in fact, he's almost a mirror image of Simon Harris. Simon Harris has that same sort of youthful, big,
that big head of white hair.
Maybe we shouldn't. It's not fair because we're all of the face that God gave us, but at the same time, it does matter in politics. Okay, Neale Richmond, the Fine Gael TD, has made a serious mistake. He was talking about, I think he was talking about women who are running for Europe for Fine Gael, and he referred to them as the whole statement. He says it and then he pedals back from it. He says the girls, the ladies, the persons. So he realizes that he's put his foot in it, so he's trying to get it back again. And the Irish Times is somebody's written an article today, and they're saying, no, it's no good. There's no point in saying, oh, I didn't mean to say that. You shouldn't have said it at all because it reveals too much about your thinking. Would you agree with that, Pat?
It's the biggest load of bollocks, dude. Absolute bollocks.
That's what I like about you. You nuance something.
That was he says both girls, both ladies, both candidates. He realized he called girls. Right, Jude. If me and you were having a conversation and we said, hey, the lads did good, there wouldn't be at least, or the fellas or the boys did good. But there's this sort of now looking for, and he wasn't even being the least bit offensive. He says the girls, the ladies, the candidates did good. Jude, that's somebody looking for offense to make a big point. They said there was something inherently belittling referring to. They said, would you call Margaret Thatcher or Angela Merkel girls? He didn't call them girls. He says the girls the candidates or whatever else, and they called them the women, did very good. He was on air, live, caught with a camera or a microphone.
Yeah.
Jesus, have we become? By the way, I'm a great believer in woke, but see, when it goes to that level, I think it's ridiculous. I really think that was looking for something.
Well, I tend to agree with you. I mean, in my experience, certainly back years before this became one of the contentious points in the culture war, girls was actually something you use informally. You wouldn't say probably girls if it were somebody you'd met at I don't know, a court or some formal meeting. It was an informal sort of friendly way of referring to women. And also it was seen, I think many men thought, well, I thought it was slightly flattering to women, where you would say, well, you're a girl, you're a woman who is girlish or in her ways. Now, women no longer like that. Your point is a good one about boys, because again and again, people are referred to as boys, and they don't really bat an eyelid. I used to go to a house once a week myself, and two guys who were even older than me, and the woman in the house used to greet us and say, "Oh, here's the boys, here's the boys." And I remember actually a guy. I do think on occasions it's like girls. It's an informal expression. But there are situations where you shouldn't refer to boys.
But hold on, Jude. There are occasions when somebody maybe can use that, like referring to a black man as boy. That is actually insulting. And if Neale Richmond had amended some girls in an insulting or derogatory or a negative sense or a pejorative way, whatever adjective you want to use, right? That's one thing. But he was on air and he was caught off guard. He said the girls and the candidates did well. Jude, there's nothing, and I mean nothing wrong with that. Not a thing.
Well, listen, here's one for you, because I think circumstances change whether it's a good thing or not so good thing. I was a co-supervisor of a guy who was a teacher who was doing a PhD. And part of that is they have to sit in a sort of an interview with a committee. And he asked questions about his thesis, and he said, somebody said something like, "Did you find it difficult or whatever?" And he said, "Well, I'm sure these boys," and he's very jerked his hand at myself and this other guy. These boys kept me on the right path. And I mean, I didn't mind being called a boy, but I thought it was very sort of unsuitable, really, for the formality of this, it's like putting on the right clothes. You don't go to
I know. I take your point, but I think I half heard that interview with Neale Richmond, and I thought, wait a minute. When I read that thing, I thought, you're taking the piss here, because if you want to go down that road, Jude, we can take offence at anything,
Well, I suppose, Pat, if you, as an old not that you're old, Pat, but as an ex-newspaper man, you would know that people have a column to write, so you've got to get somebody.
Yeah, that's exactly. Jude, you have just actually stolen my line. I think she was, or my thought, I should say. I was thinking the only reason that came up, she needed somebody to write about, and here's a theme that I can get a couple of lines out of.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Collins.
Yeah. So, one more topic. Can Sinn Féin? This is an article by Newton Emerson, and actually, I always feel reluctant bringing Newton Emerson in, because I think his thinking is very unionist. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. He is the tame unionist in Irish Times. Yeah. So, in a way, giving air to what he says is, supporting, in a sense, unionism. However, he asks the question, can Sinn Féin pull off its left, right, north, south balancing act? And what he means by that is that in the north, Michelle O'Neill is, more concerned with matters of the left, whereas in the south, Mary Lou, they're saying, has made a mistake. Well, of course, she made a mistake, I think, with regard to the number of people she ran. But Newton Emerson is saying she makes a mistake because she's trying to bring Sinn Féin into the middle ground, make it more middle class. Do you think that's true?
Jude, there is an element of truth in that. Ray Bassett, our friend Ray, former senior Irish civil servant and the former ambassador to Canada, had a very good article.
We've been very good friends, haven't we, Pat?
I was a very good friend. But Ray had a very good article. And he said in the South, Sinn Féin were back in the day were seen as different. You know, Jude, we're living in an Ireland where there's let's get this, repeat the mantra again. There's almost 1 million people waiting on hospital waiting lists, right? There are the average rent somewhere around Dublin now is 2,000 quid a month, or 2,000 euros a month. There are people in their 30s moving back in with their mother and fathers. It's almost like what do you say, a Klondike. There's a gold rush on in the Republic, and if you get left behind, it's not a great society. Man, it's great if you're one of the people who discover gold, by the way. But anyway, so that's the bottom line. And Sinn Féin enunciated and elucidated all that sort of those who had left behind. But then there was the rush to become almost sort of middle class. To not, you know, probably summed up brilliantly when what do you call him? Pierce Doherty went off with Davies stockbrokers to meet the big finance houses and banks in London. And apparently Davies, when they come back, they said, here's the thing, Sinn Féin would be more like Tony Blair's New Labour than Jeremy Corbyn's Old Labour. And what in the South, it seems they're rushing to sort of court the BBC, not the BBC, RTE and the Irish Times, people who will never, ever give them, they will never really buy all the sort of the establishment figures down south. So, and I think the core, I'm rambling a wee bit here, but here's the point of what I'm getting to. See, one of the big issues, Jude, no matter whether we like it or not, is immigration. There was massive problems before immigration, you know, about getting housing and about getting appointments with doctors and about schooling being overcrowded. And comes 100,000 Ukrainians and a whole lot of other people. You know, we had enough problems with our own population before all this, and then of course there's various other people, the Palestinians and all coming now. And a good immigration policy is neither right wing nor left wing. It's what people can do. And Sinn Féin, I think, and a lot of working class areas where, so by the way, they don't put in refugee centres in Dublin 4, and they don't put it in the leafy suburbs of Cork, and they don't put it in the leafy, so they put it in work. And working class people are saying, we're the ones getting left behind. And Sinn Féin aren't speaking up for us. In fact, Sinn Féin has been so careful, they want to be, you know, sort of woke. And here along comes then Simon Harris, the new Taoiseach, and he cuts the monies for the Ukrainians, and he says, look, wait a minute, it's been too lucrative too long, and there's too many people getting rich on this whole scheme. And suddenly he took away a lot of the ground from Sinn Féin. A lot of people are saying, I agree with Harris, I agree with what Fine Gael are doing. And Ray Bassett and various others pointed this out, that in their rush to not frighten the horses down south, they somehow forgot their core vote. And I think that's there's their biggest problem, Jude.
Well, you argue a very convincing case, but you know, the fact that he went to this financial house, Pierce Doherty, and got their okay, I think that'd be a reasonable fear.
Oh, absolutely.
Many people are fearful of Sinn Féin, you know, doing something radical. I mean, the fact that they'll get into government in the north and the south, but for many people, be very radical and unsettling. So I suppose they were right to seek. I think they were right to seek out the endorsement of, you know, some aspect of society that is very sort of settled and respected and so on. Now it may have backfired a wee bit, but I think they were right to try to do it. Whether that will ultimately serve them well, hard to know, really. I don't take the Newton Emerson's major point, which is in the north, Michelle O'Neill is leaning towards the left, and in the south, Mary Lou is leaning towards the right. When I listen to Mary Lou and Pierce Doherty, I hear them talking about housing and talking about people who are renting and people who are having to live with their parents and so on. That thing about the financial outfit that they went to get the endorsement of, that's played a minor part in the lines that they spoke. So I don't think we should overplay it. The important question is, will it have an effect? Will we see the same kind of effect in the general election that's coming up so fast? And I think it's going to be in November. I really do think it's going to be before Christmas.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
So will it have, do you think that Sinn Féin will turn the thing around? Because they had a bad election for them.
Jude, hold on, wait a minute. Here's how I took this down. I really genuinely, it's not as bad as a lot of people are making out. Fianna Fáil and the local government, Fianna Fáil got 248 seats, down 31. That's hardly a big victory. Fine Gael, 245, down 10.
Right.
Sinn Féin 102, up 21. Now they were hoping to be a lot more than that.
And that's the
Labour,
point.
yeah, but
But
here's
they
the
started,
fact.
Pat, they started at a very low base.
But Jude,
2019 was a disaster for them.
Can I
And
stop
as
you
a
there?
result, you
Right.
know,
I know one guy in Letterkenny. He's a Fine Gael councillor. He's been there for years. And everybody likes him. I even meet sinners who say, I'm voting for Jimmy Kavanagh is his name. I'll mention Jimmy's name. You're right. Jimmy's
getting 10%, are you getting 10%?
But it doesn't matter. I would vote for Jimmy in the morning because you're a genuinely good, nice fella. Right.
Okay.
You know, and so it's very hard. Sinn Féin have had some certain players have never had a councillor. So you try, and it doesn't matter whether the guy's Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, if he's been there for 20 years and everybody knows him and he's a local and all the rest of it, Jude, Sinn Féin and certain counties and certain places have no track record of having councillors. That's a big thing. Now, come along to the general election, and in Donegal, you have people like Pierce Doherty, Padraig McLaughlin, there's young fellow Jack Murray, who's not too far from me, who topped the poll and Shown, which, by the way, like, so general elections are much different. And as well as that, Sinn Féin, I think they will learn the lessons of some of the things that they went wrong. And I think they'll get they needed a bit of a kicking to get their arse in gear.
Well, it'll certainly alert them to avoid any sort of complacent stance they might be tempted to take. It sort of washed away that sweet taste they had in their mouth for the last three. I remember saying this after the last general election, saying, oh yeah, they're doing great, and the polls are saying they're doing great still after the election. But 4 or 5 years is a lot of time for events to occur, and some events obviously have.
Just one other point. See, in the north, the Sinn Féin are slick. They're on the ball. They have the backroom team. They rarely make mistakes. The strategy's always right. They have the right number of councillors and all the right. See, down south, I don't know what sort of people they have in the south. You see that the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael don't have this problem because they don't have anybody in the north. So that leaves Sinn Féin open. But anyway, bottom line is, see, in the south, the strategists they ran far too many councillors. They put in 4 candidates. I can't remember which place, and they don't even have one councillor. Why did they put in 4?
But they put it in because they put in far too few the last time. And the fact of it is, Pat, if I'd been talking to you before the election, we would have said, and we probably did say, they made the mistake last time of not putting in enough, and they've remedied that. They'll not make that mistake this time. But we wouldn't have said they've gone and made the same mistake, but at the other end of the spectrum.
I can't remember. Apparently, I think it might have been someplace in Dublin. They put on 4 candidates, but they didn't have a councillor before. Like Jesus, like any strategist would say, that's going to split the vote 4 ways. If they had to put on 2 candidates, they would have had a chance.
Yeah, the overstretch. There's no doubt about it. Will we allow our viewer to know where we're going tomorrow?
Yes, we're going to the SSE in Belfast, to Ireland's future. Myself and thyself, yes.
And there's quite a lineup of people.
Yeah.
It's funny, because Michael Martin's shared island. Well, it had an event during the week, in the Linen Hall Library in Belfast, which I attended. Yeah. Along with, I would say, at most 8 other people. Did I say more?
No, I wonder how many's going to be in Ireland's future tomorrow.
Well, it'll be 10 at least.
The last one was the biggest event in Northern Ireland.
I predict there'll be at least 10 people at the SSE arena. Okay, Pat, see you tomorrow. Okay, thanks very much.